Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Welcome back to Faith in Our Hometown, our weekly conversation with each other here in the greater Joplin area about things that matter to us as people of faith. My guest this morning is going to be Gordon Kyler. Gordon's been on our show several times over the course of the last couple years, and he's the spiritual leader of Unity Church here in Joplin. And so we are going to be talking with him this morning about this whole idea of our holiday that's coming up this coming Thursday, Thanksgiving. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Thanksgiving and the nature of Thanksgiving and whether or not we do enough as people of faith to be thankful. So we're going to be talking about that in just a few moments. We're going to take a break for a moment to listen to our Mercy Minute, and we are going to be right back after this short break. So stick around.
The different bariatric surgical options here at Mercy Joplin includes laparoscopic room-wide gastric bypass, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, and laparoscopic lap band placement. In addition, we also offer revisional laparoscopic surgeries for those patients that have had previous bariatric procedures but have had failures. The surgical procedure of choice will vary with different individuals, and so that's why our team will work with the patient on an individual basis to determine which procedure is the best fit for them. All three of the bariatric procedures that we offer here at Mercy Joplin have a long track record of proven safety and efficacy. The best procedure for the individual has to be a decision to be decided between the patient and the physician.
Well, again, welcome again to another episode of Faith in Our Hometown. I'm with Gordon Kyler this morning, who's the spiritual leader of the Unity Church. Gordon, welcome back. It's been a little while since you've been on the show. We've got Thanksgiving coming up.
Yes, we
and
do.
Of course, we've got that as a national holiday now. Abraham Lincoln did that for us, although, of course, we take our Thanksgiving heritage, of course, at least legendarily back to the Pilgrims and the first, the Puritans, or the Pilgrims, I'm sorry, and the Native Americans that were here at that point in time, who, when they survived that first winter, they kind of had this Thanksgiving feast and came together in a little bit of a unity at that point in time. But of course, as a national holiday, and the way we've been celebrating in the United States since 1863, during the time of the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln said, "Okay, we got to take time as a nation to be thankful." I don't know that we get that passed today.
Not much.
Probably
not.
not.
Much.
Probably
Yes.
not. But they did it at the time, and it's still become one of people's favorite holidays. So Thanksgiving. How did you do How do you do Thanksgiving in the church at Unity?
Well, it varies from Unity Church to Unity Church. When I was the minister down in the Unity Church in Edgewood, New Mexico, we had a service on Wednesday night, and then we had a community dinner on Thanksgiving Day. Here in Joplin, we don't do the Wednesday night service, but our Thanksgiving Day service, in which we invite the whole neighborhood, anybody that's hungry, lonely, or just wants to fellowship on Thanksgiving and have some good food. The church supplies the turkey and ham, and of course the coffee and tea, and the rest of it's potluck, and it's very, very well attended.
Yeah, we do. Of course, we've always. Folks may not know this, but the Greek word Eucharist means Thanksgiving, and so that's the way we always celebrate our Mass, or what we would typically call our Mass. So we always celebrate, of course, that on that day. Now that's not a religious holiday; it's actually a civil holiday. But for us as people of faith, we give it our own little twist, and of course, when we give thanks to God, we do it in a particular way by having that Mass that morning, and it's pretty nicely attended. People usually get their turkeys in the oven that morning, and then they usually turn around and come to church and do those kinds of things. We do our Thanksgiving celebration with the people from the neighborhood who might be hungry. We do that actually the weekend before, because there are a couple other options that they've got on Thanksgiving Day and things like that. So we just kind of spread it out and do turkey, all over the place. We also have a little tradition at St. Peter's. We do our parish, if you will, our turkey and dressing dinner. We do that on the day that we remember all those who've died during the previous year.
Right.
And we give thanks for their lives and do that in a particular way. So yeah, so it's just kind of like, those are just some of the things we do around St. Peter's too, but those are going to vary from Catholic Church to Catholic Church as well. Same way for you, from Unity to Unity Church.
We do a service for every year right after Halloween, typically around November 3rd, where we honor those who have passed. We call it our memorial service.
Yeah.
So it's same kind of thing.
Yeah, we do ours in November, but we also have a particular religious feast day on November 2nd, which is All Souls Day. We call it right after All Saints Day. And so it's all those kinds of things together, but to do some of those things. So Thanksgiving, Gordon, you know, we celebrate this as a national holiday. Do you think we as a people are thankful? Do you think people still keep Thanksgiving Day in a way that befits its origins?
Well, I have a confession to make. I guess I'm talking to the right person about that.
There you go. Go ahead. I'm
I
listening.
have a confession to make. As a minister, I really struggle with the whole idea of Thanksgiving as a once-a-year holiday. And one of the things that I strive to get across to Unity people is the importance of having a constant attitude of gratitude. After all, when we give thanks, we are giving thanks to God as our source. In Unity, we teach, and I believe most spiritual paths do, we teach that all of our supply, all of our good comes from one place, and that is God. It may come through many different channels, but God is our source. And when we have a grateful attitude, we are opening up the doorways for that good to continue to flow from us. And it can be everything from our supply, our food, our family, all the way up to the talents and abilities that we can share with our fellow man. And, the opportunities to be of service, the opportunities to lift each other up, to feed each other. So gratitude for me shouldn't be limited to one day a year. And the problem with it being one day a year, in my vision, is that it's become a commercial holiday.
Well, sure.
It's, you know, the start of the Christmas season, Christmas shopping season.
Ugh.
It's the start of
Don't get me started.
Football. You know, it's all about football, and it should be so much more than that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that you know, obviously, you know, we celebrate our Eucharist, our Thanksgiving every week. But you know, I don't mind. I don't want to be a curmudgeon toward the holiday because I do think that there is. And this is where I would, you know, I kind of fudge my, I know I asked the question about whether or not we're really still celebrating in the way that we, you know, that we probably ought. But I will say this: I think that it is interesting that everybody will take a day off, and I'm going to bet you that even around a lot of tables where maybe there aren't always necessarily a lot of prayers to stop and be thankful, I'm gonna take, you know, kind of from the other direction and say, you know, I bet that there are a lot more people that day who really do stop and at least think about it when maybe they wouldn't at any other time out of the year. And I'm not big into civil religion. You know, I got all kinds of problems with the civil religion, if you will.
Right.
But I do think that that's one of those things that we fell into it. I don't know that we really engineered it. I don't know that Abraham Lincoln, I think he was trying to engineer it because he was really trying to say, we need to stop and give thanks for, you know, blessings. But I think that even in this, you know, now, you know, so many years later, people still stop on that day and think about things and maybe are grateful for things that they might not be at any other point in time. Yeah. And so it's kind of hard for me to dislike it, but I agree with you. I think sometimes we're stingy with our gratitude.
Right.
I think we're sometimes stingy with our gratitude. So how do we make people more grateful?
One of the things that I like to think about is every moment of every day, even in the midst of the greatest struggle somebody may be going through, we can stop and say, wait a minute, what is in front of me right now that I can be thankful for? Often when I'm counseling people who are going through, struggling with maybe addiction or mental illness or poverty, or, you know, losing a job or whatever, I say, all right, before we look at the problem, what is good right now? That's a starting place.
Yep.
I think about what Jesus did. How many times he stopped and thanked God. In John, when he raised the story of him raising Lazarus, before he ever called Lazarus out of the tomb, he said, thank you, God.
Well, and it was a very Jewish way to pray. You know, you reminded God of the good things God had done.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
I mean,
Like
and that's
God would
what
forget.
it was. I mean, that was just like he could forget, but
Right.
nonetheless, it was like in the process of reminding God what God has done, we become more mindful of what God has done
That is
for
true.
us. You know, so it's kind of a way to focus those things.
And it's a solid base to build from. Oftentimes when I'm working with people who are in despair, if you can find one thing to be grateful for, it's a starting point.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, well, you know, and then there's also, you know, my daughter or my dog or my cat or, well, I also have this neighbor that looks in on me.
Right.
And gradually begin to see, wait a minute, there are good things as well.
Right.
And when you have a foundation in the good, then you can begin to see the solutions to working on the challenges.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single human being on this earth that is devoid of some blessings. I don't think there's a single human being on this earth that's devoid of some challenges either.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of us stopping to look at what we have to make some of the difference in terms of how we would approach others or how we would approach God or how we even live. In terms of, you know, with ourselves as to how well we're paying attention to some of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be something as simple as walking out your door and looking up at the sky. You know, I'm from New Mexico originally, where we're very high in altitude, and the sky is one of the,
Beautiful.
you cannot help
It's amazing.
but believe in a God when you look up at that sky, especially at night.
Yeah.
You just know there's a higher power. And to be aware of the breeze and just the sounds around us of the birds and life, it reminds us that we're part of something big. We're part of something grand. We are wonderfully and beautifully created.
Yeah.
And if you can get an attitude of gratitude just for being, life becomes so different.
Yeah. And I love that phrase, attitude of gratitude. I know that there have been certain Catholic writers and spiritual teachers that have used that phrase, but I do think it is something we have to condition ourselves to. I think that we need to make sure that we are taking a stance toward gratitude,
Right.
because you really have to stop and pause in order to make sure that you're doing it, because sometimes we just
Yes,
forget.
We do.
Or we take things for granted. And I think that when we decide that we're going to be surprised, when I think that we're surprised that we're going to be in awe, I think that when we stop and say that, you know, that there's still all these goodnesses that come our way, that takes a little bit of a stance for us to kind of, you know, remember that for ourselves.
It does. And you know, we live in a world right now where there's a lot of negative energy being put out there.
Oh, yeah.
Especially people who are very much into social media. Walking down the street, you know, reading the latest horrible things that may be going on, or
Well, I think, you know, with that, I mean, I think we really do have to. It's an issue of training. Excuse me. How do we train ourselves to look for some of the good things? How do we train ourselves to look for some of the blessings? Because it's so easy to be negative. It's so easy to get focused on those things that kind of drag us down. So, at any rate, I'm here this morning talking with Gordon Kyler as we're in our upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. And we've been talking a little bit about Thanksgiving and gratitude. And we're going to come back and we're going to continue that. But we're going to take a short break. Don't go away. This is Faith in Our Hometown.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, thanks for sticking with us this morning again on this upcoming Thanksgiving week. Okay, we're here this morning. I'm talking with Gordon Kyler, who's the spiritual leader of the Unity Church here in Joplin. We've been talking about this attitude of gratitude. You know, I will tell you that I think for me, one of the ways that I condition myself to stay positive, one of the ways that I condition myself to remain a thankful person and a person of gratitude, is that I continue to let myself be surprised.
Good.
I
Yes.
continue to let myself be surprised. So, like for example, even coming over to tape, I of course I shouldn't be surprised that that there's a key to the car. You put the key in the car, you turn the key, and the engine comes on. But I'm still amazed that somebody even figured out how to, make an engine.
Yes.
I'm still amazed that they figured out how to turn it into a car. I'm still amazed that I've got one. I'm still amazed that every time I put it in there, it works. Now, maybe not everybody's car, but at least I've never had one, but I'm just saying, I can just look at that and take all that for granted, and I really can stand back and go, well, of course it's supposed to do that. I mean, that's what they're made for. Or I can be grateful at the fact that somebody figured out how to do it anyway. I can be grateful for the fact that I have one. I can be grateful for the fact that mine starts every time. I can develop that attitude of being grateful. Yeah. Same thing going outside. You mentioned nature earlier. And again, one of those things that, on a cool, crisp morning, when you walk outside, I can just say, well, of course it cooled off overnight. Why would I expect anything different?
Right.
But when I'm amazed at the coolness of the morning and the refreshness of the world and the dew on the ground and, sometimes when the mist is rising, and then I just see, that on the grass, and you see those little blades of dew on the grass. I mean, if I look at that with awe, if I look at that with surprise, and I look at that with the wonder that I first learned to look at it when I was a kid, I'm better off.
Yeah.
I've developed that attitude of gratitude. I've developed that stance where I can look at what's going on in the world and go, thank you, God, for just today, just for what happens today, just what happens this morning.
And if going back to your car, think about what a miracle that is. How many people brought their energy, their wisdom, their knowledge to bring that car to you.
Right.
People who mined the metals, people who formulated the plastic, who invented the engine to begin with, who figured out how to make all these different systems work. How many different souls, how many different living beings have gone into that? Probably millions into one car if you really think about it.
It's amazing.
When you get that attitude, you become so grateful to this miracle that God has created on this earth, us, humanity, and all the resources we partake of.
And I always stop and think about little kids when they pray. Little kids are always in that mode of being grateful for things. I know so many times, people are tempted, and we always pray in the Catholic tradition before every meal, and I know that's not unique to us, but I love it when we teach little kids how to pray, and little kids, are just kind of like, they get so fascinated by what's on their plate, and they're just like, thank you, Lord, for my bologna sandwich,
Yes.
and I'm just like, and it's just, I love listening to little kids pray because you get so excited about those little things. And of course, the older we get, the more jaded we get, and I'm just be like, bologna? I can't believe someone's gonna give me bologna today. But a little kid is gonna look at that and go, this is great, I love this.
Yes. Have you, I don't know if you've ever heard the story about the little kid, about God wanted to know what the perfect prayer was. So he sent all the angels out, and they went to churches, cathedrals, mosques, temples, all the holy places around the world looking for the perfect prayer. And they brought them all back to God. And, yeah, those are great, those are wonderful, but they're too rote, they're too this, they're too that. And this one angel's desperate, hasn't found the perfect prayer. And it's flying over this house, and he hears this child's voice going, A, B, C, D. And goes down, and the little child is on her knees at her bed, and she's just saying the alphabet. And the angel says, child, what are you doing? She says, I'm praying. And the angel says, well, that's not a prayer. And she says, well, I don't know any prayers, but I figure if I give God the letters, he'll know what to do with them.
Make one up himself.
And, I think that speaks volumes to this attitude of gratitude. We don't even have to know specifically what gratitude is, but if we have that understanding that there is this marvelous, miraculous planet we live on, and these amazing souls that love us and sometimes push our buttons and sometimes challenge us, we can develop that attitude of being grateful for all things.
Right.
Even those things that sometimes aren't pleasant.
And I'm going to bring up another little thing that sometimes is difficult around holiday times, okay? Because this is the time of the year when so many people put so much pressure on themselves looking for that perfect Hallmark Thanksgiving or that perfect Hallmark holiday. And our families are what they are. I mean, our friends are what they are. It's just it's the reality of life.
That's true.
And suddenly, just because some civil holiday rolls around is not going to suddenly make all that perfect. And so this is the time of the year when people get depressed and they do all those things. And I really wish we could in some ways reclaim the holidays in a little bit of a different way that says, let's just be grateful for what we got.
Yeah.
Let's just be grateful
Right.
for what we've got here and, kind of make our best way, knowing that none of it's perfect. Know that it'll never reach up to my expectations. But I think we also need to also look out for any of our brothers and sisters out there who might be getting down during these holiday times
Yeah.
and reach out to them.
Right.
Invite them into that attitude of gratitude, which I think could also be another way of, just getting us to shake some of those things loose.
Yeah.
Let's change gears a little bit
Okay.
here. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk about what are your favorite Thanksgiving holiday memories?
I think my favorite, there's a lot, but one of my favorites is when I was a child and my mother had worked for hours preparing the Thanksgiving turkey. My grandparents were all coming over and we went into the living room. Of course, the guys were watching football and kids were playing and everything. And we heard this commotion from the kitchen. And my dog had taken the Thanksgiving turkey off the counter. And in the process, it dumped over the mashed potatoes and the sweet potatoes and the green beans.
Oh.
And we ended up going to McDonald's, which when I was a kid was a treat because there weren't that many. When I was born, the sign didn't say billion served, it said 3 or 4 served. But seriously,
You're not that old.
our whole family went to McDonald's for Thanksgiving. And we had so much fun. We were the only people in McDonald's, and it was open,
Wow.
which was a surprise. And we laughed about it for years. And, some family Thanksgivings were wonderful, some were a little dysfunctional, but I think one of my favorite memories, though, is that we come together and we are together as family with all of our warts and wrinkles and,
Right.
and whatever. And we can celebrate each other.
Yeah. My in our family, Thanksgiving was always at our house. And my mom and dad had built the house one year, and of course all my aunts and uncles and they'd all come and help build the house. My dad and his brother are all in construction, so they'd worked to build the house. So mom and dad, that first year that they were in our new house, and I was 10 at the time, so they decided they wanted to invite everybody over at our house for Thanksgiving, and it started the tradition that every year then became Thanksgiving at our house,
Right.
because we had one of the bigger ones, and we had an open basement, and so if the weather was bad, we could, a huge backyard, so all the cousins are there, and all the aunts and the uncles and everything, and so, the adults would sit around the big table upstairs, and then, we'd take the
kids'
the
table.
kids' tables, and
Yes.
of which there were many, and we would have our, Thanksgiving feast, and everybody would make the same stuff each year. So we were in charge of the turkey, and the mashed potatoes and the dressing, and that's what we made at our house. And then everybody else brought all the other side dishes and all the desserts and everything. So I knew which aunts would bring. Well, I knew my Aunt Patsy would bring in Texas cake.
Right.
I knew my Aunt Eva and my grandma would both make pies. And they'd talk to each other ahead of time and figure it out. So there's always at least one pecan pie because my brother liked that. Of course, pumpkin, and then they'd always make some fruit pies. And of course, when somebody was thinking about me, they make rhubarb or they make cherry or do those things, and it was all great. And so we'd all come together. But one of my favorite things about the whole thing was when my cousin Tim, God love him, was getting married. He said to his wife Sherry, he said, we can do anything else. We can figure out whether we do Christmas Day at your house, Christmas Eve at my house, what we can do any of this. He said, but there's one holiday that just has to be, that I got to have, and that's got to be Thanksgiving at Uncle John and Aunt Helen's. And when I first met Sherry, that was the story she told. She goes, so you're Jay. She said, I hear I'm coming to your house for Thanksgiving, And, several years after Tim had died, and we gathered on that Thanksgiving, and, there were lots of tears.
Yeah.
But we told that story, and we were still grateful for his life.
Yes.
Yeah. And in each passing year, when we've lost some more, and so this year, another one of my uncles died, and it's just, I wish we still had the house. I still wish we had those things,
Yeah,
and
sure.
they still go through my heart and my head. But being now in a separate corner of the state, I don't get to be with any of those family, and we don't do it anymore.
Right.
Families kind of split up and done those things, but I'll always be grateful that we had all those Thanksgivings at the house, and that always will be a part of my memory. I mean,
Yeah.
because for me, Thanksgiving is, of course, being together with people I loved,
That's the most
and
important
gave me
part.
lots of
Yes.
lots of opportunities to say thank you, lots
Mm-hmm.
of opportunities to say the prayers, and and now I'm thinking about those kids that were all born during those years are now having their own kids,
Yeah.
and it's it's just enough to kind of swell your heart open a little bit.
It
So
is. It
I hope
is.
that's what we're doing a little bit for you this morning is giving you an opportunity to think about some of the things in your own heart that swell open. If you want to get in touch with Gordon, there's his email address right up there on the screen. And we're going to be taking a break here in a second, but maybe during the break you might think for yourself, what are the things you're most thankful for this year as we come into this upcoming holiday? We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute.
The SANE program, or Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program, is a program established to provide a coordinated, specialized care to patients or women or men who've been the victim of sexual assault.
The SANE program is really designed to be a collaborative community response to sexual assault.
It's really important to make sure that it's not just the report or the forensic, but they get all of the testing that might be needed for their health.
It's also important to know that you don't need to know if you want to press charges or not. We don't get law enforcement involved unless you request it.
I just want to express to the victim that it is never your fault. You always have the right to say no, and that it's your body. So if you say yes one time, it doesn't mean every time.
I think it's important that sexual assault victims remember they've been victims of a crime, and crime victims do not pay for those services.
Well, thanks for being with us this morning. I hope that my guest this morning has been Gordon Kyler, spiritual leader at Unity Church. I hope you wind up somewhere with family, friends, people who love you this Thanksgiving, this Thursday as it approaches. I usually wind up going to the homes of some parishioners now. I've developed some new Thanksgiving traditions since I've been here in Joplin because, again, my family home is, gone, and, my mom and dad are gone, and, my cousins and aunts and uncles are scattered throughout. But I hope you find some place where you can practice that attitude of gratitude, as Gordon and I have been talking about. It is one of those things that I think that we as human beings, there is something in our nature that wants to give thanks. Some of the two most important words that we're taught, and some of the first ones we're taught as little kids. And so I really do hope that we can turn and say that to each other. I hope that we can turn and say that to ourselves for the good that we've done for ourselves. And I hope that we can turn for all of us who believe in a higher power, a God or something greater, that we can continue to remember that we do need to stop from time to time with a little bit of an attitude of gratitude and say thank you for all the different blessings that we've received. I know that Abraham Lincoln made it a part of the calendar, but more importantly, it just should be part of a hope of our human nature that stops every once in a while to be surprised, to look, and to say thank you to all those people and to all those things that we need to say thank you to. So join us again next week for Faith in Our Hometown.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.